Welcome to this episode of Against the Mountains of Madness. I'm your host, Jason.
And I'm John C. Wright.
And on this episode, we thought we'd talk about the sexual counter-revolution, why monogamy is a good idea, and polygamy is just for perverts. So part of what, in an amusing coincidence, Australia's most sexually active woman, Annie Knight, by all accounts, she is, but it would probably be simpler just to say Australia's sluttiest woman, who I think 2 years ago was boasting of how she had had sex with 700 different men. In an amusing TikTok video, she was asking the question, my body count is 700. What's average for other people? And somebody stitched it and said, oh, I know what's wrong. My dad said something to me when I was younger that made the difference on this. It was, oh yeah, I love you. And apparently,
in other words, her harlotry is probably caused by a psychopathology, a neurosis related to her father. Is what the implication is.
Well, from various news reports that float around occasionally that I've seen, her parents are divorced. Her father had no idea she had an OnlyFans and what she was running around doing. But her mother and her stepfather apparently support her in what she does. I'm guessing she gives them money. But what makes all this amusing is Annie Knight has come out and said, after achieving a personal goal of having sex with 600 different men last year, in a year, it's important to have goals, I suppose. Now she wants to settle down and find a good man, but she's having difficulty doing it. And I believe the quote. Okay. Let's not
evil would be funny if no one got hurt.
Well, apparently her experience from the article I read said something to the effect of, she's looking for a man that's non-judgmental and can accept her past and will be loving and committed and loyal. Again, it's kind of amusing, in a tragic sort of way, but yeah.
It's slapstick levels of amusing. It's a guy falls out of a window and has an anvil fall on his head level of amusing. Yes,
pretty much. I'm not sure. And
because it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
Apparently what keeps happening to her is she meets guys, they make the right noises. Presumably she sleeps with them very quickly because she's 28.
Yeah, 600 a year is 2 a night.
Well, but she's 28. She's decided she wants to settle down. And what she's discovering is, the tragedy is the guys are, I'm assuming this is the way it's going because I read about this practice at least a decade ago, which was you find a woman who is been a party girl, been a trampy, I'm not endorsing any of this behavior, been a trampy party girl who's, racked up a large number of men she's had relations with.
A woman of loose morals.
Woman of loose virtue. That's a good term. That's a good turn of phrase. And then these women get to the end of their late 20s, early 30s, look around and go, holy crap, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. I need to find a man.
Right.
So now they want to be serious about finding someone. Good luck with that. After a decade of training themselves to do anything but. And then they start going on dates, and the guys have figured out these women don't understand in any way how to secure a man's affection apart from putting out. So they'll put out early. So the guys turn up and they make all the right noises about, oh, I'd love to meet your family. Yes, I'm looking to have 5 kids and settle down and have a stay-at-home wife, blah, blah, blah. All the things she wants to hear. Then she goes, okay, well, I want to secure this relationship. I know what I'll do.
The only way I know how, yeah.
And takes her pants off. And then the guy goes, I got what I wanted, and moves on. And there's nothing good about that behavior. Like, that's reprehensible behavior, but at the same, that's reprehensible behavior on his part. But at the same time,
it's also the behavior that's been incentivized.
Yeah,
Okay.
Except, like, I mean,
So
yeah,
whenever you tempt a drunk with a free beer and he takes it, you're partly responsible, though he is also partly responsible.
there's plenty of blame to
Okay.
go around. I think is
Right.
the,
And
but
if he's drunk so many drinks that he's now a drunkard, that his mind and body are now accustomed to, attuned to the evils of drink, well, your body, mind, and soul become accustomed to and attuned to the evils of unchastity, even just as easily, or maybe even more so. You know, just because
well,
nowadays we think of strong drink as a disease, alcoholism as a disease rather than as a moral failing, doesn't mean that it's not a moral failing brought on by overindulgence in what is otherwise a perfectly licit pleasure.
but it can be both things. I mean, the fact that you have a genetic predisposition or weakness to become an alcoholic doesn't I mean doesn't mean, well, it's okay if I become an alcoholic. It means,
Right.
no, you have to be more on your guard against this
Right. Some
because
people
you're
are
more
more
susceptible.
tempted by some people are more tempted by lust than others. Some
Yeah,
people are more tempted by wrath than others. Some people are more tempted by pride than others. The rich are open to particular temptations that only rich people can indulge in, and the poor are open to the particular temptation of envy for everyone who's not poor. You know.
yeah.
So
No,
smart
I get
people
it.
are really open to the temptation of intellectual pride.
Right,
I should know. I
yeah.
speak from experience. So the question is, the reason why we call this podcast the Sexual Counter Revolution is that I'm hereby declaring a new crusade against the sexual revolution, which was bad for women, bad for men, bad for babies, and for all other living things. Because this woman has trapped herself in a life of misery. Is there
Yes.
any way to escape from the trap?
No.
Maybe, but
Well,
I would not wager on it. I would not wager on her ability to find a guy with her particular set of skills and abilities, to find a guy who will react with the type of stern and loving, masterful masculinity that she needs to get her to fly right. I, I think she is,
she would buck against that and reject it. She wouldn't accept it.
of course, because she's been habituated to evil. You see,
Yeah.
you can't turn a vice into a virtue overnight. Maybe the Holy
Well,
Spirit can do it, but
I
she should
would
enter a
say,
monastery. She should be a nun for a few years, and
well,
then you know.
that's what I was going to say. She at this point, I'm sorry to say, because her experience is the guys turn up, they make all the right noises, presumably she puts out, and then they ghost her.
Yeah, you just said that.
So,
You just said that.
oh no, but I mean, like, yeah, that's what's happening to her. That was the
Of
complaint in
course,
the article, and I mean, it's not
because
surprising.
that's what's been incentivized. That's the behavior that's been
Yeah,
rewarded, and so you get whatever you reward, you get more of. Okay,
yeah,
and it doesn't
yeah,
excuse her from her own immorality. That she's reaping what she sowed.
yeah.
But the reason why we both laughed, at least I laughed, is because
Uh,
how could anyone not see that? I planted a thorn bush seeds. How come I have thorn bushes? I planted tares instead of wheats. How come I have tares in my backyard? Well, what
oh,
seed
of
did you
course.
plant? You know.
No, of course.
Uh
I mean,
Now
she spent a
feel
decade
sorry for
training
the girl.
herself. Yeah, I mean, it's tragic,
It's
and
tragic.
she doesn't see it.
But it's
Um,
tragic the way a suicide is tragic, not tragic the way being hit by a meteor is tragic. You see,
oh yeah, she did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, she did this to herself,
did it herself.
and
But society
she shows no signs of stopping. Like,
society helped her. She did it by herself, but the whole atmosphere, all the peer pressure around her, everything that was rewarded, she got fiscal rewards, she got
yep.
applause, she was the life of the party. The spotlight was on her wherever she went. You know, don't 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 tell me this.
Oh,
Let me briefly just mention, when I first became a father, I realized that unlike my father's generation, my dad's generation, when I was raising my kids, my society, my neighbors, the media, the newspapers, the everything in my culture was against me. They were actively trying to undermine the lessons I wanted to teach my children. They were actively trying to suborn, corrupt, and subordinate the virtues I wanted my kids to have. Okay, that does not. There are some societies where that's not that way. It was not that way in the Victorian era, which these days has a bad reputation for being hypocritical. But at least if they, let's say they were hypocritical, let's say they were the most biggest hypocrites in the world, at least they were hypocritical in the right direction. They weren't trying to be hypocritical about
Well,
Immorality, they weren't. They might have been Puritans, but they weren't impuritans. The
well,
impuritans are people who are hypocritical about the impurities, where they say you should sleep around and you should have 5 wives and you should dress as a woman if you want. But then they themselves, the rich Eastern liberals, go get married and have kids. You know,
mm, well, I mean, as they say, hypocrisy is the tribute that vice pays to virtue.
right,
So,
right. And anyone who did take the morality seriously in the Victorian age probably would end up with a good husband and stick with him.
hmm,
You know.
and I mean,
One thing I did not during the public debates that came before no fault divorce, which started in California, just by the way, under President Ronald Reagan. By the way, wasn't president at the time, Governor
tragically
Ronald
so.
Reagan. By the way, one of his to his eternal shame. One of the arguments that was never made about no fault divorce is that the women would be the one 9 times out of 10, or maybe 95 times out of 100, who sued for the divorce because they were tired of the relationship. That was something that
That's
came as a shock to me when
uh,
I stumbled across that statistic.
it's important. That statistic is not. I see that statistic cited a lot. It's like, oh, 80% of women file for divorce, and that's used as a proxy for, or 80% of women file the divorce papers, and that is trumpeted as a proxy for 80% of women blow up relationships. And I don't think it's true.
Mm,
Like, by and large, I don't think that's a good proxy, because I know of I know of a number of cases, like more than one. I've seen a lot of divorces and a lot of relationships split up over the years,
mhm.
and I've seen husbands run off, and I've seen wives run off. Like I've seen both spouses cheat, and then a divorce happens and whatnot. So I've seen all of that. I've seen numerous cases of that, and I've seen cases where the party that filed the divorce and the party that nuked the relationship by having an affair isn't always the same. Frequently, is not the same party.
Well, that's
Sometimes it
true.
is. Sometimes it is. But to say, well, she filed the papers, she blew the relationship up. Well, no, he ran off with his secretary,
No, no.
abandoned her and the kids, and then she shot the dead horse. That's and then
Let's be fair. I did not say the
no, but
women
I've
are at
seen
fault. The
no, but
reason
I've
why the
seen it
woman
put that way.
files the papers is that she's more likely to want child support or alimony from him than
Oh,
he is to want any sort of support from her. Even these days,
yeah.
men are usually the breadwinners. So
Well,
the
hang on.
woman needs to turn to the court. If he's running off with the secretary, he just run off.
I
He just
would
pack a
note.
suitcase and go. You
I
know.
would note on that point. Um, there's a he used to be a Catholic. He was interviewed by Matt Walsh. I can't think of his name, but he's a fairly high powered New York divorce attorney. That's his job, and I've seen him interviewed a few times. Um, and he did make the interesting observation relevant to your point there, that he has women come to him going, "Well, my husband just run off. I don't want to get a divorce. I want to work this out, but I've got bills to pay. I've got kids to take care of,
Hmm.
and I can't afford to do this. We're going to lose the house, etc." The literally the only option she has, according to him, but he seems trustworthy enough,
Yeah, yeah.
because he's was, well, yeah, you have to go and file for divorce. You have to put, if you want to get child support and you want him to contribute to paying for his kids and stuff, you've got to file for divorce. You don't have another choice. That's the only way to get the ball rolling. You won't be able to do it otherwise.
Right.
So, I mean, that probably comes back to, that's effectively being incentivized.
Right.
But I don't know. The whole thing's messy. By the time someone's filing for divorce, there's there's hundreds of previous steps that have been taken, um, that this is sort of the end of the chain of. And I don't know. Looking at the divorce seems like just, you know, um, you can probably learn something, but it's probably too late at that point. At the point
Here's what you can learn.
divorce is being filed, it's
Here's what you can learn. Women are not well served by the sexual revolution.
no, of
The
course not.
divorce rate skyrocketed like no one could believe. I was once at a dinner party, and there were uh, six. Excuse me. There were three couples at the table, so six, three men, three women, and the divorce rate at the table at that time was zero because it was three married couples. Okay. Then my friend's sister, who had been divorced and remarried six times, came and sat down at the table. And at that moment, the divorce rate at the table became 50%.
Well, yeah.
Okay, because there were six couples, or excuse me, slightly less than 50, because there's now seven people and six divorces. Okay, and she got
Yeah.
divorced because he went off to work and was not paying attention to her. He would leave her alone during the day.
Six
Okay,
times?
six times.
I gotta be honest. I mean,
Yes,
I saw a feminist complaining the same thing. She'd been divorced 5 times and was saying all men are crap. Why are some men so awful? It's like, if you've been divorced 5 times, you might be the problem. Like, have some
but be
accountability
that
for
as
your
it may,
behavior, my dear.
but this girl, I felt sorry for her, was not
Yeah,
violating any law or custom in the United States. Okay, she merely just
no.
had a Elizabeth Taylor level of divorce rate. Okay,
Well,
now who do I blame? I blame King Henry VIII. Do you know why?
fair enough. Because he
Because
got a
King Henry
divorce?
VIII thought he needed a boy to preserve his realm and to prevent a civil war. But Queen Elizabeth, especially if you're an Anglican, if you're a Protestant, Queen Elizabeth was one of the most historically celebrated figures of English history. She did a perfectly fine job, except for, of course, drawing her entire nation into apostasy. But aside from that, she was a perfectly good queen. Okay, his and he got a divorce and he didn't end up with a son anyway.
Hmm.
Okay, so he broke the church teaching because he thought that the security of his realm needed it. He placed the needs of the world above the needs of God, and he didn't. It just how happened to be futile anyway. Okay, now divorce for cause, I think, is perfectly okay for our Protestant brethren. If you want to say my husband beats me or my husband cheats on me, then throw him out, throw his shoes out the window.
I would
Okay,
note it depends
and
on the
I'm just right
cause.
now. I'm just speaking of. Yeah, but I mean the traditional divorce for cause, which
No,
is
no,
which is
no.
which
Well, no.
is
I
abuse
would,
or adultery.
I, I, I will say something that people will probably get upset at, but abuse, terms like abuse and domestic violence are almost meaningless these days,
I
unfortunately.
mean beating. I mean
Fair
he
enough.
strikes
No,
her
no,
in the face and
I know.
raises a bruise.
No, no, I
Okay,
understand. I understand what you
let
mean,
us
but
let us not even bother with what the Morlocks they speak newspeak. They every word
that's
they say is
fine.
a lie.
No, no,
Okay.
that's okay. I've just my experience has been when, because you say, oh, abuse, and then you have something, like, yes, she burned the pot roast and he beats her and puts her in the hospital. That's a pretty bright line and that's pretty clear. But
Now, if
then,
your jury awarding the divorce is corrupt and they think divorce should be for any reason and no reason, then they're going to take a hard word as the same as
well, but
abuse.
I mean, no, but I mean, like, just that term abuse is always going to expand over time. Once you
No, it's
allow
not. It's
it.
going to expand if liars expand it, if they use it for propaganda
No,
instead of
no, no,
using it in the
no.
legal definition.
Well,
Assault and
yes, and
battery is a crime that is defined at law. Okay, we
sure.
don't
No,
have
no.
to we don't have to abuse our language, and we don't have to let the liars abuse our language for us.
No, I agree. No, no, but I mean, in practice, even if people are well intentioned, generally speaking, what qualifies as abuse will get broader over time simply because you have a line, you go, okay, it's clear this is the case, and you go, okay, well, what about this case? Well, okay, that's fair enough. That case probably counts as well. Okay, this case, and I mean, and these cases close to this case are probably reasonable.
I
The problem
I'm
is
a
you end
faith
up over there.
I'm a faithful Catholic. I don't think divorce is licit. I don't think man is allowed to put asunder what God has put together. Okay, so
I'd agree.
that's the way to solve the mission creep you're talking about.
Well, I suppose.
And mission
Well,
creep
actually,
happens.
I would note, actually, technically speaking,
Technically, the
um,
Lord allows divorce for sexual immorality. He says so.
no, well, no, the Catholic Church says no,
But
but
Christ said yes.
well, no,
Christ
because
says that in the line where he
no, no,
says you
no.
can't get divorced and
No,
remarried.
my understanding is um, that's not necessarily a good reading of that. But anyway, we can leave it aside. I'd actually contend. I think the Catholic Church does actually have, in a sense, has the right approach, and
Right.
the Catholic Church technically doesn't say you can't get a divorce. Well, I mean, um, you can't get a divorce. What you can't get is if you abandon your wife, you can't get remarried.
Sure.
I mean, you can say so. However you want to define divorce, whether you say it's a civil proceeding, we've separated all our assets, whatever, you can go and do that. That's fine. Um, but you can't go and start another marriage relationship
Right.
until the other spouse dies. That's so if you can't live with it, if you can't get on, you're fighting all the time, it's totally unworkable and it's going to drive you to suicide. You can separate indefinitely.
Sure.
This is not a good outcome, and you can go and
No.
get a divorce on paper so that so all the financials are sorted and all the rest of it.
Hmm.
You just can't marry someone else.
Right.
Like that's actually, I mean, in a sense, that's
That's
actually
that's the teaching of
that's
the
effectively
church.
the line. That's actually the line.
Right.
Um,
Right.
not
Now,
that it would
but let's
encourage abandoning your spouse, but you know,
but as a faithful Catholic, I agree in a sense for all the church teachings, and I
mm,
became a Catholic because I saw the logic of the teaching, which really surprised me. Because when I was an atheist, I thought all you Christians were insane. I thought you Christians were just delusional. You believed in something like Santa Claus. Uh, but I was driven step by step, very much against my will, into the belief, into the realization that every element of the sexual revolution was not only false but illogical, not only illogical but immoral, gravely immoral, and that includes things like abortion, contraception, and divorce. You see, and the reason is that unlike herons or something, we're not instinctively monogamous. Our reason tells us we should be monogamous.
I don't
It's
think
not so.
that's. I'm.
It's not
I'm not.
something. It's not something we would do without a law or a custom enforcing it. If you leave men to their own devices without any law that says them nay, they will mate with whatever women they see fit, and they will not think of the long term.
I'm not sure that's perfectly true. A 15-year-old might, given the opportunity. Well, okay. I guess
I will call
I
the
guess I see what
entire
you're saying.
history of the earth to the witness stand as
Well,
my witness for testimony.
I don't know. Like, I mean,
Name a monogamous culture where monogamy was optional.
no. See, I don't want to go that far because I will agree. No, hang on. Um, but if you say monogamy is optional, then you're saying they will train their young to regard it as optional.
Where it is not enforced at law or enforced by custom.
Sure. No, I get that. But I mean, like when you say men are naturally non-monogamous, I think
You're
that's.
look. It's a semantic debate. You're
I think
caught
it's
up
a
on the
half
word.
truth.
You're caught up on the word instinct.
Yeah, I
Men
think
will
so.
naturally lie because we are naturally liars. When I say natural, I mean man's
Sure.
fallen nature. Men will naturally murder. If it wasn't illegal, people would do it. People will do it more often than if it's not legal. Than if it's not illegal. Okay, we're naturally murderers.
Oh
Man
no,
wolf
I
to
know.
man. Okay,
I
agreed.
understand. I
Men
think
are
that no.
naturally lustful. They will commit the sin of lust unless laws stop them.
Sure. Okay. I think what I
So
wanted to.
what's your argument?
No,
Why are you objecting?
I think what I want to say is I think men are more naturally monogamous than you're giving them credit for. They're not perfectly
That
so.
you don't know how much credit I'm giving. All I'm saying is that if you create the incentive, if you have
Oh
no
yes.
incentive toward monogamy, monogamy is not going to naturally arise.
Okay. My experience. Okay. My experience is the guys that will sleep with many women. Well, it's a small percentage of men that have the option because lots of women throw themselves at them. But also, a lot of guys do just want to find a wife and settle down, but they'll tend to be they will tend to be habituated to other
The
behaviors
culture,
after they get. Yeah, it's fine. I get it.
the
I get it.
culture
Fine.
is against them if they try to live that way.
Sure, I agree.
I remember being in college when all the
Fair
guys are
enough.
chasing
I
all the
agree.
girls, and at least
Yeah,
and that's prime marriage age, college age.
yeah, that's true.
Okay.
No, I'll
And I
concede your point.
remember
That's fine.
talking to a friend of mine who was outraged that there was a woman that he was sweet on who was going to wait till marriage. He thought she was being offensive. He thought she was being insane. How dare she? And his infatuation turned into hatred.
Was he intent on marrying her?
I don't know. I didn't know. That didn't come up in the conversation because I was a young college boy who was
No, no,
also
I get it.
a polygamist in my heart.
Well, I get it. I mean, like, it just seems an odd thing to be mad about. It's just like, if you're in fact, I mean, as they say, the natural language of love is promises.
Right.
So the natural in the capital N natural law sense of that affection and love is making promises and commitment to one another.
Right.
So if she's gonna, I mean, if she's gonna wait till marriage and you love this woman, okay, just elope. Like, it's
I
not that
don't
hard
wish
to
to
do.
psychoanalyze my friend, and he's not
No,
here to
no,
defend himself, but I will
no, no, that's
badmouth
fine.
him. Let me
No, no,
speak.
no.
Let me speak.
Sorry.
I will badmouth him, however. I believe he was upset because she had revealed the falseness of his protestations.
That'd be fair.
You see, I think he was making the right noises, and he was a handsome guy, so the right noises always worked for him before. And then
Yeah.
when he came across a woman of virtue, his line of BS, his line of blither didn't work. You see, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But I will agree that the number of men who want to settle down with an honest woman and raise kids is much higher than our popular culture would have you believe. We have been
yes.
subjected to sexual revolution propaganda every day of our lives since birth, okay, you and I, because it's all around us. It's in the atmosphere. It didn't just start with OnlyFans. It didn't just start with the internet
No.
porn.
Well,
It started in the late 50s, early 60s. Okay.
there is a popular YouTuber by the name of Homath, who's quite entertaining. He's quite He's not as bad as he thinks. He draws lots of diagrams about male-female relationships and provides a lot of psychology and stuff too. It's actually quite interesting. But I've noticed a couple of times, because he apparently was pudgy and out of shape when he was a teenager, and then in his early 20s spent a year or so getting quite ripped and in shape and dressing properly and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went from like a 3 attractiveness to about an 8 attractiveness as a man,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and discovered, and upon doing so, his opinion of women went from quite a high opinion of women that he'd like to find one and settle down to really, really low. And his opinion was most women are promiscuous hoe bags that will just put out without regard to
Right.
loyalty and honor. And
Right.
this was basically and I mean, he will freely admit to behaving less than virtuously on many occasions. He's very pragmatic, but I can see, I think there's a lot of guys that are, when you talk about men that are sort of promiscuous, I suspect a lot of them have had a number of bad experiences and have come to the conclusion women behave like this, so they'll simply take advantage of it. That's
Now,
probably not true.
without bad-mouthing the fair sex, I have to say that I believe women are more naturally a herd animal than the male of the species. That they tend
Definitely,
to be
100% so.
communal. They tend
100%
to
so.
want to follow. Tend to follow conformity,
Hmm.
and they want to bind the social fabric together. That's why women in the ancient days were the peacemakers. That's why you would sell your daughters to the enemy tribe to make peace with that tribe. Excuse me, swap your daughters. Your son
Oh,
marries my daughter. My daughter marries your son. Women are naturally peacemakers. They're naturally conformist. So if the culture, you just agreed with me.
no. I mean, I guess my question is, for the last century, we have increasingly given women all of the freedom they want to behave however they like, do whatever they like, and
Right,
pursue whatever instincts they like.
right,
And
and
they are entirely burning the culture to the ground
right
on
because
literally every possible
because
front.
I'm gonna say something shocking to you. Because women are naturally followers and men are naturally leaders. It's been that way since Adam
True,
and Eve.
I would
And
agree
the
with that.
men that these women are following are cads.
Yes,
The intellectuals of the 1960s, the communists and the revolutionaries, the feminists of the 1890s, who were all Satanists, just by the way, they were all occultists. Okay,
yeah,
these feminist anarchists who were against the church, who were also anti-clerical,
of course.
promoted immorality.
Yeah,
They wanted to
I'd agree.
burn down the whole system of marriage. And women, being naturally followers, followed. And so when we gave them free reign to do anything they wished, What they wished to do was go where the rest of the herd was going, because they tend to be more congenial than men. Not in every case, but they
No, I'd
tend
agree with
not to
that.
be.
Yeah, of course.
They tend not to be as
It's a spectrum.
but it's a
It's
bell
true.
curve, and the center of the bell curve is
Yeah.
in two different places for the two different sexes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, like not yeah. You can find outliers among men and women, but
Sure.
on average, women want to be
A generality is
congenial
generally
and
true.
get along. Yeah,
A
exactly.
generality is generally true. That's why it's called a generality. In
Exactly.
general, women
Yes.
generally are more conformist than men. They're more congenial
Yes.
than men.
It matters
Well,
to them what other people think.
In a poisonous society, they want to conform to the poison because they're conformist in
Yeah.
general. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they
No, I
spread
agree.
it. And so if they're raised to believe that virginity is shameful, they, being the polite, the fair sex, being the submissive sex, will submit to that and will become whores, because that's what everyone approves of. That's what their friends approve of.
And
You see?
later, when the women that have fallen for this lie get a bit older, they need to encourage the younger generation to follow in their stead, or
Right.
they get to be alone. Because I mean, yeah, have you ever noticed very promiscuous women really, really hate virtuous women?
Yes, I've
They
also noticed
despise
that.
them.
I've noticed that for both sexes, and I've noticed it for angels who have no sex. Yes,
But also,
the devils hate the angels because the angels stood where they fell.
but the reverse is sort of, well, the reverse isn't as true. Like virtuous women more or less don't care that promiscuous women want to be promiscuous. They more lament the fact, although they generally speaking don't want them around their husbands.
I wish that virtuous women would shame and browbeat the unvirtuous women, because we men cannot change the female culture at this point. Okay.
Oh well, yeah. There's an
I mean,
interesting.
I just said women always follow men, and yet, and here I'm saying the opposite. Women have to enforce the social order. They've got to enforce the rules, and so we have to make slut shaming great again. Okay.
I heard an example once that explained the maths of that was very, very reasonable. If you have 100 men and 100 women, and you convince, and you basically go to the men and say, you must not be promiscuous. You must keep it in your shorts. You must be virtuous. Right. And if 95 men take your message on board and listen to you, and 5 men don't, and you say nothing to the women, you're still going to, I mean, this was in the context of out of wedlock children. 5 men can cause a lot of mischief.
Yes.
5 men can impregnate all 100 women. And so it doesn't, and even if you go back to the men and start telling them off even more firmly, and you convince 97 of them now, those 3 men can still cause an enormous amount of mischief.
Right.
But if you go to the girls and you say to them, no, bad, keep it in your pants, keep your legs shut, and you convince 95 of them, even if you say nothing to the men, that can't cause that much mischief.
Right, because there's only going to be 5 whores. There's only going to be 5 whores in the tribe, and they're going to have 5 kids a year at most.
Exactly. That's so. As much as people want to say it takes 2 to tango, sure, but I mean, that's fine. It takes 2 to tango. I agree with all of that, but shaming men will not really. I mean, it's worth educating the men properly, but if you're not gonna seriously educate the women, it's a complete waste of time, because the 5 cads will just cause a whole lot of problems.
I don't remember what the statistics are for in the Regency period, but I believe a really healthy number of women, by which I mean very unhealthy, were harlots, were demi-mondaines, were
1 in 5.
1 in 5 was the statistic.
Wow.
For women in the Regency period. Okay.
I wonder if it's that bad yet.
Now,
today.
that was why the Victorian age is the Victorian age, because they were in revulsion, in rebellion against the Regency period. No, the Regency period is just before the Victorian period.
Let
me consult my family historian.
No, we agree.
Regency was the beginning of the 1800s.
Sorry, no, the Regency period and the Victorian age was a rebellion against it. I get that's what I meant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What we thought Victorianism was a reaction to the wildness of the previous period.
That's my family historian. I have a family historian and a family detective here at the Wright household.
And what did the family historian
family
say?
should have one.
She gave the dates.
Ah.
She's a Regency romance writer, so she knows the Regency period backward and forward.
Right. Okay.
But basically, 1 in 5 women. 1 in 5. Now, do you know what's shocking about that? Our culture is worse because the number of how many women have committed fornication?
Oh, sorry,
I know
I mean getting paid for it.
2 women. Who cares about paid? I know of 2 women. I know of 2 women who, one of whom was not even kissed before marriage. Okay, I found this out at the wedding when I asked to kiss the bride, and I was like the second man she'd ever kissed in her life, and I only pecked her on the cheek because she had just kissed the husband to which she had just been married. Okay, now that's strict, and of course I approved because the girl was gorgeous and she's fertile and is going to have a million kids, and she's going to outbreed you horrible, horrible secular moderns. Okay, and the other one was a young lady who was a fan. She became a fan of mine because she was a fan of my wife's writing, and one of my fans became a fan of my wife's writing through me, and they met each other, and they just had a lot in common talking about our books, so they decided to get married, you know. And both of them virgins until birth.
Did one of them grow up on a farm and the other one is now a pilot for the?
Correct.
Yes,
you know them. You know who I speak.
I know exactly of who you speak.
And they reproduced
editing
young.
A book.
they reproduced.
They met through the old Superversive Press.
Correct.
I was amused. Anyway.
So you're the Yenta. You're the matchmaker.
You joke, but I'm up to 4.
Who's joking? Who's joking? I just have that look on my face no matter what I say.
I'm in the wrong career. There were 2 from Superversive Press that got together. Well, there's 2 couples that got together from Superversive Press and 2 couples that got together playing board games at my place. I'm definitely in the wrong career.
Just think of how much money you would get if you were a Yenta. With the way he looks and the way he sees, they're a perfect match. The sexual revolution was as big of a success as the French Revolution, by which I mean it resulted in the terror. People tend to remember the French Revolution as only killing the aristocrats, but they killed everyone. They killed the peasants, they killed the merchants, they killed the sailors, they killed the army. They just killed and killed and killed. It was like the Russian Revolution, okay? Mm. Now, the victims of the sexual revolution, however, didn't have their heads chopped off. What they had chopped off was their virtue. Our entire culture, and I'll say not just America, but I'll say the entire English-speaking world, just became weak, became incapable of having any self-command when it came to sexual matters. They all became perverted, and by perverted I mean when your natural desire is shifted out of its normal, proper channel and directed at an improper channel. You see, if you love a woman and you lust for her and you want to mate with her and make her your mate for life and have children with her, that is an understandable romantic emotion. Okay, I'm being a little delicate here. But if you have that emotion toward a woman you don't intend to marry, what are you going to do when there's a kid? Okay, shotgun wedding, that's one option. Abandon her, that's another option. Father a lot of bastards, that's not a good option. That's not a good option for social unity and community. Kill the child like the ancient pagans? How did that work out for Oedipus's dad? Okay, that's a horror that is as deep in hell as what the Aztecs did. Okay, and we are all Americans are going to give the Aztecs a big apology on Judgment Day because they killed fewer babies than we have. Okay. Yeah. Because they at least were trying to make the rains come and appease their horrible gods. We're doing it for what? For what? So you can sleep around more? So you can be convenient. It's convenient for your career. So you don't have to drop out of school and raise the kid. So you don't have to do what's important in life. So you can do what's unimportant in life to avoid what's important in life. Okay, women, you've been sold a bill of goods. This is not making you happy. The divorce rate is up. The suicide rate for women is up. The drug abuse rate is up. The alcoholism rate is up. Every indicator of vast social unhappiness is up and up. So the people who told you that marriage was a trap were fibbing to you. Well, it's just a lie.
What can I say? Women, antidepressant usage is so high among women that it turns up in the water supply.
Well, the the pill also turns up in the water supply, making people sterile. So our sterility rate is going up. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we thought sterile sex was the answer. The sexual revolutionaries, I mean. By the way, I'm an ex-revolutionary. I bought into all that hogwash when I was young because I listened to Robert Heinlein and Ayn Rand. Okay.
Doesn't everybody? It appeals to the prurient interests of 15-year-olds.
Sure,
I think
but
it's
in other cultures, those people would have been shunned and ostracized.
yeah. Oh no, I get that. I wonder if it's starting to change though.
I believe it is. I
But
believe that
I
I've seen
guess
more women talk about being traditional wives now than I've ever. If I added them up, that's more than I've ever heard my entire life. Okay.
yeah, but a lot of these women. Well, remember Annie Knight from the start of the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these women that talking about being traditional women, not that bad, but they have
But pardon me
seen
for
the
sounding impatient, but what are you talking about? The number of people talking about traditional marriage when I was young was zero.
no.
Zero.
Oh
Now
no
you're going to say some of them are being
no
hypocrites, some of them are
no
dishonest. Yes, of
no
course, some of them
no
are just spinning a
no
line of
no
BS.
no
Sure.
no wait sorry no hear me out. No, I think they're sincere. That's fine. I'm happy to concede they're sincere, completely serious about it. But like Annie Knight at the start, many of them have a past and now are looking for something more settled and traditional. Um, I
So
don't think
what?
you can be what?
So what?
Well, the problem is none of these women are good prospects for marriage.
So what?
Oh, that's okay. I get it.
No, you don't
It's
get it. No,
not.
you don't get it. Listen to what I'm saying. Having an ex-whore saying traditional marriage is good is better than having an ex-whore saying whoredom is good.
Yes, I actually no.
Okay?
I will concede
It
your
was
point there.
no one said it when I was young that ever came within my range of hearing.
Fair
Nobody,
enough.
everyone I talked to, even my own parents, were in favor of the sexual revolution. I have 3 nieces who did not even know what the word fornication was the first time I used that word in their hearing. They didn't know what it meant. It
Fair
never
enough.
occurred to them. It never occurred to them that sexual escapades would be off limits.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I understand what you're saying.
So the counter-revolution starts with sinners trying to repent.
That's true. Oh,
Now,
yes.
among those sinners,
It's
sometimes the repentance is half-hearted, or it's not at all, or they just think, well, now that I've sown my wild oats, I'll settle down. Well, no,
yes.
you're not gonna settle down. That option is not really open to you.
That's the
No,
problem.
no man in his right mind is going to marry the biggest whore in Australia.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Exactly. No. No. But that's the problem. Like the numbers are clear. Women that have had a number of. It's probably true. Well, it's probably not true for men because they probably just don't get married. But women with a past, shall we say, with an extensive past, shall we say, have an exceptionally high divorce rate.
You liked the phrase loose women of loose morals.
Yes.
They have been trained to not be faithful, and so their
Of
divorce rate
course.
is high.
Yeah.
Because
What do you?
virtue is a learned habit of behavior. Their
I
learned
guess.
habit of behavior is to be self-indulgent rather than have self-control. So when they get
Of
married, they
course.
still don't have the habit of self-control.
No.
And
If
any man who doesn't know that about them is a fool. Any man who goes, "Oh, this woman has no self-control. I'll marry her. She won't fall for the first Lothario, who is a South American helicopter pilot." And then, of course, when Lothario comes along, "Hey, señorita, well, fly away with me to Argentina," she's gonna go because
Of
she hasn't habituated herself. You see?
No. I get that. I guess my concern about the change in direction is, um, the women of loose virtue, which unfortunately is a lot of them,
The majority,
sure, make very poor make very very poor wives, make an exceptionally poor bet.
right?
Men have figuring this out. Men are figuring this out, and so will avoid these women.
Right.
So they might be talking about traditional marriage now, but give them 5 years and many frustrating failures to find anybody, and they could be. I don't know. We could see a rebound in a very ugly direction.
My comment again is, so what?
Well, that's
The
true.
12 and 13-year-olds being raised hearing about traditional marriage,
Is definitely better.
women being a conformist sex,
That makes sense.
might actually try to stick to their guns, especially if Christianity makes a comeback. You
True.
see, because
Actually, yeah.
it's a lot easier to retain virtue if you think there's a reward both in this world and in the next.
True. Actually, have you noticed at church more of the younger girls wearing veils of one sort or another?
I have, and it delights my heart. I think make the veil great again. I think the veil is the greatest thing in Catholic Church. I love it.
Fair enough.
I love
I
it.
mean, like, I wouldn't enforce it, but I have noticed it seems more common among the younger women.
One can like a custom without insisting it be a law. So
Oh, I wish people understood that. People don't understand that.
when I was young, everyone who went to church, all the men wore coat and ties. Women dressed up. Not these days.
No, I get that.
I
No,
don't
I
even own it.
understand.
I don't even own a tie. You know. So
No, I understand. What I'm saying though is, most people don't understand this concept of but most people don't understand either it needs to be a law or it doesn't like they don't understand any middle ground
when you
between
when you say
100% liberty and it's a law enforced at the point of a gun. They don't
every
understand that there's a middle ground between this.
everything that is not forbidden is compulsory. If I can
Effectively,
quote from,
yes. Yes,
well,
exactly.
that is
That's
not most
exactly
people. That is leftists. That is a mental disease of the authoritarian left, because to them, government is not just the be all and end all. Government is God, and so to the left, there are no other institutions
fair enough.
besides the government.
I live
You
in
see,
Australia, so perhaps my perspective is skewed by the fact that most of the people I know don't understand that distinction. Don't
well, here's the other
understand
thing.
that.
Here's the other thing that makes it a hard distinction for some people to understand. I believe that most customs need to have a legal enforcement at least present as a threat, if nothing else. If you only need to punish one guy out of 100 for fornication, and you also teach and preach that fornicators burn in the inferno, uh, that is usually sufficient to create a disincentive toward fornication, despite how randy and lustful men are. Okay,
Well,
especially young men.
would it be fair to say effectively what you're saying is teach them fornication is a bad idea as a custom, and then smack the worst offenders?
Yeah, yeah. That creates the proper incentive structure, because the
Yeah.
police can't be everywhere at all times. They can't stand in your bedroom. But if you just take out an Andrew Tate here and there or some other famous whoremonger,
Well,
then
I suppose,
people will no longer admire and publicly laud the behavior.
yeah. I suppose the question is, what do you make the law? Where do you draw the line? I mean, it used to be a crime to, it used to be a crime to promise, basically promise a woman you would marry her, sleep with her, and then not follow through.
You're mistaken. It used to be a tort to do that. It's called alienation of affections.
Okay, you
False
get
promise.
sued. You
False
get
promise.
sued.
You
You
get
get
sued by the
sued. You go to
father.
prison. It's a
But
civil crime.
if
Civil suit, whatever.
you copulated with her, then that was fornication, and that is a criminal law. That was criminal law. Look, I always find these discussions of people who are modern, who don't seem to understand how we could return to the laws that were perfectly in working order in the 1950s and the 1940s. I mean, that wasn't, to my mind, that long ago. It's one
Yeah.
generation, maybe two.
Well, I
Okay.
mean,
My wife's father fought Nazis in World War II with a camera, but he was
I,
there. Okay, it's not that long ago.
I
So
would.
fornication, it's illegal. Go to jail. Sodomy, illegal. Go to jail. You see.
You know what? We probably well.
And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I say go to jail. Is because even if you only have to punish one sodomite out of 1,000 for a violation of the law, the fact that it's against the law will mean that no activist court is going to make sodomy marriage legal in your country.
The law is a teacher, even if the law is not particularly aggressively enforced.
Right. Right.
I would note though. I mean, making fornication illegal or making sodomy illegal probably politically not possible for the near future, shall we say?
Certainly not. Certainly not. This is a
But
long-term goal.
but that being said, I mean, the simplest first step would be just to stop subsidizing it and encouraging it.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't,
Let's
I
start with
don't, I,
pornography. Let's start by illegalizing pornography. It's not
um,
protected by the First Amendment in my country and never has been.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd probably be on, well, what would you make illegal?
Pornography!
Yeah, I understand that.
I would use
How,
the same standards that have been used in
no,
Anglo-American
no, you're
law
asking,
since the
no,
18th century.
no, we're talking past each other. What would such a law look like? Presumably the production of pornography would simply be outlawed,
Correct.
and that's fine. Um, when would you be breaking, like, whatever the penalty was you made for it? What would be the actual concrete offense you would have to commit to be convicted of this by a jury? Does that make sense?
You're
Like,
asking
would you have to
what the elements of the crime are?
effectively? I mean, like, because it's easy to say.
Publication of scurrilous pornographic material.
Okay, a possession.
If you want to make possession illegal, also certainly possession.
Sure, no, I'm just no. Sorry, people say you should ban pornography. I'm just trying to understand, like, because part of me says when I hear that, I effectively hear people saying, I want to stop everybody looking at porn on their computers, which would be nice, but that's probably not enforceable. How are you going to enforce that?
By
And the only,
custom.
I agree, because you're never going to be able to enforce that by law,
Right.
without the most insanely. There's no way the price you'd have to pay to enforce that legally
Right.
would be worth the incredibly draconian laws and surveillance state you would have to build. That's
Right.
so.
Right.
So if you want to say ban pornography, I can get on board with that.
Let
But I need specifics.
Let me interrupt because this is a non-issue. Do you know how
Fair
most of the laws against bank robbery are enforced?
I suspect they're probably not after the
You will
fact.
you will never guess. Their
Sure.
family turns them in.
Really?
Their friends turn. Yes, because they don't get a cut of the money.
That makes sense.
Now I don't have the statistic on the top of my head. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue as to what percentage that is. But usually it's an informant that turns the guys in. You see? So if you want to make anything illegal in society, it's got to be something that the society in general is already committed to oppose. Right now, our society is not opposed to pornography. Not even everyone on the right. Most people on the right are libertarians these days. They don't think it should be illegal. They don't see anything wrong with it. You see? But that's where it starts. Now, where it ends, the reason why I became a Christian was because logic forced me to it. Because men and women we're mammals, and our young are born helpless. Okay, that means a prudent man, and I believe prudence is one of the four classical virtues, along with fortitude, justice, and temperance. Justice and temperance require that you take some provision for raising a kid, for raising the child if you reproduce with a woman after making the sexually reproductive act, which is the sex act. Okay.
Yeah, if you don't
Our
want to have
society,
babies, don't have sex.
our society has divorced the sex act from the sex act. For
Yeah, of
us,
course.
for most moderns, sex is not sex. Sex on the one hand is entertainment, and sex on the other hand is reproduction. And those two things don't have any connection in our heads
No.
because our society's gone insane. We actually believe A is not A, sex is not sex. Okay.
The platonic ideal for our society is not sex, but the orgasm.
Right.
The platonic ideal of sex in our society seems to be masturbating alone to pornography in the dark.
Right, but masturbating with another person is physically the same act as scooping up your lovely wife in the nuptial bower on your wedding night. You see, people want the pleasures of the wedding night without paying the price of the wedding. They want to have sex with the girl, but not have sex with her, because sex is for either two things: reproduction or the unity. Okay, you either have sex with your wife to love her more deeply, or you have sex with your wife to have a kid, or both at once.
Well,
Okay,
I mean,
but if it's a one night stand, you don't want the unity and you don't want the child.
You're
Okay?
just chasing the pleasure.
Without contraception, the idea of just chasing the pleasure is highly dubious, because then the whores have to do something with the bastards that they bear.
Well, it's risky for women. Well, I mean,
There's a
contraceptives of
grave moral risk.
contraceptives like condoms have been around for a very long time.
Not effective ones though, not ones that are really really useful, but they have been around since the Roman times. Yes,
But they've been. I mean, they're better. They're not
the
completely
sin
useless.
of Onan, if nothing else.
I'm not. I mean, I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, like, the pill is quite effective, but there were fairly effective methods prior to that too.
We can debate how effective
Anyway,
they
it's
were.
fine.
They were not socially acceptable, however.
No,
Before
that's the difference.
1930, before the 1930 Lambeth Conference, no Christian denomination accepted sex as being accepted contraception
Yeah.
as being allowable.
No, I agree with you. It was
Now-
natural family planning or nothing.
People say, oh, you conservatives, you Christians are just against sex. No, I'm in favor of sex. I think sex
No, it's
is
quite the
sacred.
opposite.
I think sex is great. If you want to have the best sex of all time, marry your wife, marry your girlfriend, make her your wife, and try to have a kid. Okay, you're going to have more orgasms if your mind is with it than if your mind is against it, and it's going to be more loving. There's going to be no hesitation, and you don't have to worry about putting a balloon on your male member or whatever you're doing. Okay. And you don't have to worry about the contraceptive chemicals getting in the groundwater and beginning to affect, turning the frogs gay, or beginning to affect how women on the pill have a naturally psychological dysfunction when it comes to being attracted to men. They get attracted to the wrong type of men they don't love.
There are
because it's messing up their thinking.
It puts them in the wrong. Yeah, it puts them in the wrong frame of
right
mind for what they're looking for. It puts them in the nurturing. What is it? There's like women have two sorts of men they find attractive over the course of a month, apparently, and it puts them in the
wrong time of the month.
It puts them always in one part over the other, and
Right.
the problem is it doesn't put them in the part where
Right.
they're looking to make a baby.
So if you actually want to, and this is the hard thing for conservatives to swallow, because like I said, no Christian denomination aside from the Catholics forbids contraception at all times. If you want to get rid of the abortion culture, you cannot have an abortion culture. You cannot have widespread social acceptance of abortion unless you already first have widespread social assertion of contraception. Yeah. Now, I'll point out as a lawyer that Griswold v. Connecticut, which was the Supreme Court decision that made banning contraceptives outside the range of state law, made it unconstitutional to ban contraceptives, was wrongly decided. There's nothing in the Constitution that has anything to do with that. There's no emanations of any penumbra of any right to privacy, which is not in the Constitution. Okay? A social order, the government of a society gets to decide what is necessary for the virtue of its men in order for the men to be able to defend society, and for the virtue of its women in order for the women to be able to rear the next generation of the society. Without those two things, the men to defend and the women to child rear, the society dies. Right now, we have a society that's in a death spiral. We are not having enough kids. Don't watch the movie Soylent Green. We are not having enough kids to supply the empty seats. Okay? So, conservatives, if you want to get rid of abortion, which is clearly an offense to God and man, unless you're a Moloch worshiper, it's an offense to God and man. If you want to get rid of abortion, you got to get rid of contraception. And I don't care about how many kids you want to have or don't want to have. If you don't want to have a kid, don't have sex with your wife. You just grin and bear it. Take a cold shower, okay? Or use the natural NLP method, the rhythm method actually is more effective statistically than the pill or the condom or the IUD.
Well, presumably because you're deliberately not trying to have sex at times when you're most likely to conceive. I've seen people actually, speaking of natural family planning, I heard a really good, because I've seen people criticize it and saying, well, how's that different to artificial contraception? And of course, it is very different.
It's very different. Because you're still open to the
you can still
commission of new life.
The example that was given was say you're hosting a wedding and you're not sure how many people you can have to arrive, and you've got some family members that you should invite to the wedding, but you don't really want them to come. You don't really want them to come. You don't really want them there.
Right.
So you know they're going to be out of town on a certain weekend, or there's a weekend. You've got 2 weekends you can pick for your wedding. One of them, they'll be very likely to be able to come, and one of them, they're very unlikely to be able to come. So you pick the wedding date that makes them unlikely to be able to come. Now, if they can't, if they RSVP yes, you will accommodate them and make space for them, and you'll figure it out. But you put it on the date they're not likely to come. That's what natural family
Right.
planning is doing the same sort of thing. If the guests arrive, you'll work it out, but you're trying to organize it so you
Right.
won't have
In other
them
words, if I may
as
be
a
a little risque, the man is allowed to come during the sterile period of the month, but there's probably not going to be a baby. But if there
yeah,
is, it's still going to be a blessing. Do you
yes.
understand? Do you understand the difference in psychology between
Well,
copulating with your wife when you think it's going to bless you, and when you think it's going to having a child is a disaster?
Well, that's what I was
So,
going to say. Artificial contraception, by comparison, is just refusing to invite them to the wedding
right,
and and ringing them up and calling them names so they'll never speak to you again. Like, I
right,
mean, they're nothing alike at all. They're very, very different things. And like you say, the psychology of it is very,
right.
very different. Well, contraception naturally treats children as a curse rather than a blessing
Correct. And
by its very nature.
there's nothing in the Bible that even remotely like that. In the Bible, it says, "Be fruitful and multiply." The mother of Samson prayed for a child. The John the Baptist's mother prayed for a child. Okay, children are always a blessing. And to have a society that hates children, that hates itself, because that's what comes of this. You see, your emotions fall in line with your virtues, with your behaviors. So if you're living a sterile life that hates families and hates children, and thinks that women are just weak men, the idea of that women being equal to men is basically just the idea that women are weak men. They're like men but weaker. Okay, physically and emotionally. Uh, that just makes everyone hate everyone. Women all hate themselves. Men all hate the women. Everyone hates the babies. Your society's not going to survive. You're not going to live in that case. You see. Whereas the Christian method, which is you celebrate the wedding, you have a big public ceremony, you throw rice, you make risque jokes, you know, and then you've publicly vowed to the woman that any children that she bears are yours, and that you will take care of them for life. And if it's a Catholic wedding, you're not going to go off with some other woman, you say, or at least, excuse me, you're going to go to hell if you do. So
Sadly,
it's enforced both by law and by custom in Catholic countries.
sadly, one change we might need to make is mandatory paternity testing at birth. Um,
Sure,
the number of horror stories associated with men raising children that aren't theirs or
it's
being
the
on the.
it's the cuckoo's egg strategy. Do you know that
Oh,
in Anglo-American law, by tradition, a man could not question his wife's the paternity of his child?
there you go.
He also could not rape his wife because rape is sex without consent, and she consented at the wedding ceremony.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's common assault. I mean,
Assault is a different crime.
of course,
If you beat the woman, that's still a crime.
we I don't know. I think we might need to. I think one first step that might solve at least some of the problems would be well, I don't know. There we go. We've got 5 minutes to go.
To solve the world's problems,
No,
the
but
solution is found in Christ. The solution is the
of
Christian
course,
rules for
but
marriage are
in
common
terms,
sense rules that are logical, that don't divorce sex from sex. That in Christ, A equals A. In the secular
well, mate.
world, A is not A. Sex is not sex.
So what?
Sex is merely mutual masturbation between two people who
Of
don't
course,
like each other that much.
of course. Well, I mean, I suppose this is the question. What do we do? What do we do as first steps, concrete first steps, to turn things around? If I can go out on a limb and suggest some unpopular ideas,
May I suggest a
um,
popular one first? Then you can do your
sure,
have lots of babies.
sure.
Raise them in the church, baptize them. And then we will simply outbreed these sterile,
Well, that's true.
life-hating, antinatal baby killers.
Well, but you say women, like you were saying earlier, women will follow other women with whatever the culture is telling them.
Yep.
Probably we could solve some. Well, could outlaw abortion, but I'm not sure how well that would work in practice.
You can't make a law unless the people are ready to receive it.
No, I understand that. But perhaps we could do a couple of simple things that would be very hard for people to say are unreasonable or oppose.
Well, we could stop funding abortion for one thing.
Well, that's true. No, but I mean, mandatory paternity testing at birth for all children.
Sure, why not?
And I mean, it has to be mandatory, or otherwise, honest women and dishonest women are both going to say to their husbands, why do you need a paternity test? Don't you trust me? And so it just needs to be mandatory, and then it's not a problem. Then it's just, well, look, yes, I trust you. That's fine. It's not my call.
Let me interrupt to say, I noticed that you're saying the exact thing I just said about it. If it's customary because it's only enforced once every 100 times, if it's mandatory, it hardly needs to be enforced, but it gives the guy an excuse to say, well, I trust you, baby, but it's mandatory. What can I do?
Precisely. No, that's why it needs to be mandatory, because it's a fairly serious problem.
And likewise with the laws against fornication. If the guy says, I love you, baby, I'd be happy to bed you, I'm really eager for you, but it's against the law, what can I do? See?
Yeah. Well, but the other thing we could probably do is, probably the simplest thing we could do is change the law to remove child support if they're not married when the child is born.
Yeah.
That'd be probably the simplest thing you could do. And then, unfortunately, at that point, because I remember talking to you about this many years ago, and I said we need to basically, if you're a single mother, I'm sorry, we basically need to stop. We need the state to stop supporting you, and you need to not have a claim on the man that impregnates you's income if you weren't married when the child was born. And you were understandably disturbed at the suggestion, because
I'm okay with shotgun weddings.
Well, no, but it wasn't. It's not. I'm not talking about shotgun weddings. It's just, if you have the child out of wedlock and you're not married to the man,
Yeah.
you have no, like, you're on your own. Don't. And I mean, I've suggested this to people, and they say, well, wouldn't that put the abortion rate up? And in the short term, yeah, it probably would. And
well, I don't remember the conversation. What was my objection at the time?
Well, you said basically you couldn't harm the children like this.
Mm.
And
I do think the father has a duty to
of course,
raise the kid.
Well, see, that's the thing.
But I have the opposite feeling. I think the marriage should be compulsory at that point.
Sure. Well, that would be an option, like a shotgun wedding. Well, I mean, I think customary, if you were to change the law to that, I think the number of shotgun weddings you see would go up, and I have no problem. I have no problem with that.
Now, let's bring public shame back. Let's bring back the word bastard to mean someone born out of wedlock.
Sure.
And let's shame the woman who mothers a bastard, because that doesn't happen by accident.
No.
Okay.
Well,
let's shame the man who fathers a bastard. Christians do that.
I think the problem you're going to have, I think the hardest part, and this is what reminded me of the conversation with you, there's no, because of the hole we've dug, there's no way out of this that isn't going to harm a lot of people. There's
Agreed.
there's absolute, I mean, if you were to change the laws tomorrow to say, unless you're married to the father, there's no child support, you're on your own, and there's no single mother pensions or anything like that, you're going to have to go and get a job, and you're going to be destitute and poor if you have children out of wedlock. Don't do it. The problem, like, go and try the church, maybe they'll help you out. And for a small number of women, you can handle it, but there's going to be a lot of kids harmed by that. There's going to be a lot of harm, but I'm not sure there's any avoiding it. And I mean, you need to make a hard decision, because, well, what's the choice? I mean,
no, I'm smiling because I'm thinking our society can't even steel ourselves to kill rapists. Yeah. We don't have, there are states where there's no death penalty for rape. And some of those rapes end up with a child. Okay.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Rapists should be executed and have all of their assets liquidated. Not to put too fine a point on it.
I don't agree with bills of attainder or corruption of the blood. I think that's not fair to the rapist's family and his heirs.
Fair enough, but
it's against the American Constitution. You guys can do that in Australia.
Fair enough. But I agree with you. Like, we should execute rapists, because the percentage of men that are sort of violent rapists is very, very small. They have a very high recidivism rate, but the death penalty gives you a low recidivism rate.
Women who deliver a false rape accusation should go to jail.
At the very least.
Well,
it should be. I just think the penalty should be equal. If you falsely accuse someone of rape,
I don't think I would kill a woman for a false accusation of rape, but I would kill a rapist.
Well, the penalty. Would you kill? I suppose rape is a typical rape is one of those difficult questions, because I mean, like, if you drag a woman into the bushes at knife point and have sex with her, That's a very clear-cut case of rape.
Right. Right.
If you go and meet a woman at a bar and you both have a few drinks and then you go back to her place or she comes back to your wait, no, let me finish.
If fornication
And then
is also
no,
illegal, then
no,
the
no,
case
no.
is a little more clear.
No. Okay, but if you come back to her place and then after making out a bit, she changes her mind, says no, tries to leave, and then you force yourself on her, that's still rape, obviously. I mean, like, I'm not suggesting that's
Maybe.
okay. Well, no, but I mean, that's like, if she
It-
says no,
that
if
would
she says no
turn-
and you have sex with her,
That
that's
would
rape.
turn on whether or not. No, that would turn on whether or not the jury thought that she had consented or not.
Well, no, but that's my point. The problem, in that case, clearly, she said no and you had sex with her against her will. That qualifies as rape. The question
Technically.
is, no, like, we agree that would be wrong.
Technically, but you're talking
But
about
how
a
would
case
you-
where she's already in his arms
How would
at
you prove
night
it-
alone. Okay,
No,
so
sorry, that's my
I'm sorry.
point.
She's deliberately put herself into a position where it's difficult for the law to enforce the law.
Well, that's
fairly.
actually my point. That's actually my point.
Agreed.
Although I agree it would be rape, how does the jury adjudicate that? You can't adjudicate that. Like, I mean, I did see.
You have to have the consent be public and notorious.
Yeah.
You have to
Well-
marry the girl to have sex with her. Okay. Do you know what the one
It's
defense
simple,
is
isn't
for?
it? It's
Do you know
simple,
what the
isn't
one
it?
defense is for if you sleep with a 18-year-old girl and she turns out to be 17 years old and 11 months and she had a
As
false ID?
If you're married to her, it's fine.
If you marry her, then it's fine. If you marry her first, you're okay. It's not statutory rape in that case.
Huh. Oh, that's good. Well, I did see the suggestion, at least, to adjudicate that complicated rape case, which was if a woman goes behind closed doors with a man, consent is presumed. That's probably too far,
That's
but
one way of doing it. That's one way of
But-
doing it.
I mean, that's probably too far. That's probably an extreme example.
Maybe,
But it's
we
workable.
now live in a culture
It's
where false
entirely
accusations.
workable.
We live in a culture where false accusations of rape are an epidemic, and men forcing themselves on women or taking advantage of drunk women is also epidemic.
Yeah.
Okay, we are now living in the worst of. The only thing I
Yes.
can possibly liken it to is there's this place called Australia where they just dumped a bunch of criminals, and for many years, not a long time, but for many years they didn't have any church there or any social organization, and then the church started sending people in to force the ex-cons and their doxies to get married and to enforce the rule. But before that, it was just a wild anarchy. So now here in
I
America
don't know
we
if
have
that's
our
true.
own.
That doesn't get taught in our history if that's the case, but
It
wouldn't
happened.
surprise
It
me.
happened. Georgia was also a penal colony in my country, and it was
same
the
problem.
criminals did not uphold the Christian rules strictly and voluntarily.
Criminals break laws. Who would have thunk it?
But before the current generation, the Australians were all tough as nails because they were descended from hardened criminals. And something happened to you boys. They put something in the water.
Yeah.
They put fluoride in your water or something, or it's the pill has gotten in the groundwater and turned everyone into sissies. And it happened to my country too. I'm not playing holier than thou.
No,
My
you can
country
pick on
is-
us. You can
we
pick
are
on us. My
such-
country disgusts me at times.
We are such sissies. I think there's hope for the future, though. I think the sexual counter-revolution is going to happen because
Yeah,
our women are happier. Okay, our women are prettier. Our women don't have to pretend that a man in a dress is a woman. You see. So
I think the problem we're going to have is how do we deal with the casualties?
that only God knows. I can't.
I
answer
mean,
that
that's
question.
like, what do you do? What do you do with the woman that? I mean, I suppose this is what a nunnery is for. What do you do with Annie Knight when she has a religious conversion and goes, "Oh my God, what have I done?
Christ
How do
is
I
forgiving.
live a virtuous life?"
She has to go. She has to do penance. She has to make amends. And if she moves to another country where no one knows her, maybe she can find a guy. But her habit of virtue has been shattered, and she's going to have to rebuild it. And I don't know if it's possible. Let me put it this way: all things are possible with God.
It's
there's
not,
some things-
It's not
There's
possible.
some
short
things
of
I
God.
can't. There's some things I can't see a human way out of.
Yeah,
So-
that's the problem.
Now, so if this generation wants their children to be better off than they are, which is something the baby boomers apparently did not want, as best I can tell,
Hmm.
then they will teach their children virtue even if they themselves didn't practice it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Getting rid of public schools will be a big step for that, and cleaning all of the sodomites out of the Vatican would also be a big step toward restoring some decency to
well,
the world.
in that regard, just take the long view with the church, because all of the liberal priests are the old ones who are aging out at this point. There are no young liberal priests. So
we ought to do it. We could do a whole segment just on that.
give it a
But
couple
we're up
give it
against
a little
our
while.
time.
We're out of time, but give it
We're out
time.
of time.
We'll get there.
So the moral of the story is: men, keep it in your pants. Women, keep your skirts lower. The men will love you more if you're not easily available to them. Okay?
Yeah.
Marry young. Don't go to college. Have lots of babies. You will be happier. College will just, I won't say about in Australia. College in America will just turn you into a raving lunatic. Okay? It's an indoctrination center. You don't need it. You don't need a college degree to raise a kid, okay? Or to raise 5 kids.
And if you want to have a career, get married young, have a couple of kids, and when they go off to school, go and get a job, go back to you can study then if you want.
Right. Or with
there's
computers
time for
nowadays.
Do it in the right order.
Back in the day, women had a lot of at-home jobs, including things like tap mistress and weaving and sewing and all sorts of things. With modern computers, you can run a business out of your basement. Okay. Through the internet.
Be careful how loud you say that. We've seen the sort of businesses some of them will run.
Well, I don't mean I don't mean a whorehouse. I don't mean a porn store.
I know. I get that.
I was thinking of writing. I was thinking of screenwriting or something.
Yes. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining us on that awful note. Thank you everybody for joining us. We'll talk to you next time. Hopefully this was entertaining. Like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for listening.